morning, everyone. I'm Diane Macedo. Thanks for streaming with us. Jeff Bezos and 3 other passengers on board Blue Origin's new Shepard have returned to Earth safely after a successful flight to the edge of space. We have a full recap of the launch and what the crew is saying now. Meanwhile, rescue workers are racing to find survivors after devastating flooding in Europe. At least 200 people have been killed and nearly 300 are still unaccounted for in Germany, Belgium, and parts of the Netherlands and Switzerland. Entire communities are at risk of being completely wiped off the map. And now there are questions about whether the disaster could have been avoided, as the National Weather Service says they issued a warning 2 full days before the floods hit. And in the U.S., more than 80 uncontained fires are burning in 13 western states. Over 2.5 million acres have burned so far this year, 720,000 more than this time last year. Officials say the giant bootleg fire in southern Oregon is even making a pyrocumulus, a fire-driven thunderstorm cloud that can make its own lightning, which could potentially spark new fires. And this morning, we saw Amazon and Blue Origin founder Jeff Bezos and his crew successfully launched to the edge of space. The team traveled 62 miles above the Earth's surface with this history-making moment. Now Richard Branson, who also just completed his own launch to space, is tweeting a message of congratulations, sending his best to all the passengers. Transportation correspondent Gio Benitez has the latest.
2, 1.
The Blue Origin rocket and capsule making history, launching Jeff Bezos and his crew of 3 to the edge of space 62 miles above the Earth's surface. Sitting at each of these windows, the largest ever to fly to space, each seat getting a nearly perfect view. The astronauts walking out to the capsule, boarding the new Shepard and launching just after 9 a.m. Eastern. So what happened on board their short journey into history? 2 minutes after the launch, they accelerated to 3 times the speed of sound, Mach 3. The astronauts experiencing about 3 Gs as they reached the edge of space.
It's like having a gorilla sit on your chest. Think about 3 times your body weight pressing down on you.
3 minutes after launch, the capsule separated from the booster, putting them in microgravity, weightless for another 3 to 4 minutes.
No control.
Then 6 minutes after launch, they buckled up again and started falling back to Earth. Parachute slowed its descent to about 16 miles per hour before it landed softly in the desert at just 1 mile per hour.
Welcome back to Earth, first step. Congratulations to all of you.
The whole voyage, just 11 minutes.
Blue Control, Bezos, best day ever.
Yeah.
Bezos, his brother Mark, 82-year-old Wally Funk, and 18-year-old Oliver Damon emerging from the capsule after their historic trip. Wally Funk, now the oldest person ever to be in space, a dream come true for the woman who started training in the 60s for a Women in Space program, but was never given the chance to go until today.
All right, Gio Benitez, thanks for that. And for more on this historic launch, let's bring in astrophysicist Hakeem Alushayi and former NASA astronaut and Columbia University professor Mike Massimino. Mike, as a former NASA astronaut, what was going through your mind watching today's launch?
Well, Diane, thanks for having me on. And Hakeem, how you doing? It's good to see you. But what was going through my mind was I was just really happy for everyone at Blue Origin, Jeff Bezos, the crew, especially Wally Funk. Well, that was just a great moment, right there, seeing her get a chance to go, and the young man, of course, I was with him, the 18-year-old. So I was happy for all the individuals, all the people on the Blue Origin team. And just beautiful to watch this thing go. An automatic vehicle, very automated, launched perfectly. The booster comes back so they can fill it with gas and do it again. And they experienced the weightlessness, got those big windows to look out of, and got back safely. So really excited for what happened today, and very excited about the future.
And Mike, we also saw the crew's reaction when they landed. High fives, hugs, popping bottles.
Yeah.
What does it feel like when you go to space and then you land safely back on Earth?
That's a pretty good feeling, Diane. When you come back, you know, the flights I was on with the space shuttle, they didn't always end well. And, you know, you're very grateful to be back home again, to see your family. And those are really special moments, and kind of strange, you know, you're walking around the planet like, wow, just a couple minutes ago, I was up there. So pretty special coming back and getting to see your family and all the people that made it happen that got you there.
Hakeem, what does this mean for all the engineers and everyone else who worked hard behind the scenes to get this crew into space today?
This is a relief that everything went well for them, of course. And I got to say, hey, Mike, good to see you, sir. But he almost had me convinced to join the astronaut program a decade ago, if they would have me. But, you know, I think about the students. I think about the young people that saw this happen. And, you know, it's cool. That's the thing about it. It's cool. It's fun. You heard their reactions. But you know what? If you go into the STEM sciences, if you go into science and engineering, you experience a lot of coolness. And so this is a trip to space. As a scientist, I've traveled to 41 different countries and never paid for a single trip because it was work, right? So you travel all around the world and you may find yourself traveling into space. So I say for everyone out there who sees this, this is your future. This is accessible to you. Not necessarily paying a couple $100,000 to ride on Blue Origin, but you can be a part of this and you can go where you never thought that you could go.
Hakeem, how much more do you think that message hits home, that this could be you and this appealing to young people, given there was an 18-year-old on board, the youngest person to ever travel to space?
That's absolutely correct. And the fact that Wally Funk was there as well, right? We have had a restricted access to space, and that is because it's just so darn dangerous, right? And it just took so much effort to make it happen, and you needed a nation to do it. So we've evolved beyond that point to now we have a lot of commercial entities that came on and ramped up quickly and pushed the technology. And so, you know, people who are involved in making this happen, they run the gamut, right? There are people from all walks of life. And so, you know, it's sort of like looking at professional sports. You don't have to be the star quarterback to be associated with the NFL, right? You could be a trainer, but you still get to know Tom Brady, right? So it's the exact same way here. I know Mike, I know Nobel Prize winners, I know a ton of astronauts, and that's because I'm involved in the process. So just get involved, and who knows? You may find yourself there.
And if both of you gentlemen could stand by for a moment, our Michael Strahan was actually able to speak to Jeff Bezos just moments after Blue Origin landed back on Earth, and I want you to take a look at that.
Good to see you. How are you? Come here. Come here. My brother, you know him?
Of course. Oh, man. Oh, man. Okay. Please tell me, you fulfilled a lifelong dream.
Yeah.
You went to space.
Yeah.
So how did it feel? This is a big day for Blue Origin.
Greatest day ever. Amazing. I mean, speechless in a way. I don't have the talent to put into words what we just experienced. Maybe we need to send a poet at some point or something, but it was incredible.
It was really amazing. It was, the views were breathtaking. I've never seen anything so beautiful.
And I know yesterday you said, when we talked yesterday, you said, I'm curious about how it's going to change me.
Yeah.
And I know you just got back,
yeah.
But any initial thoughts?
My initial thought is, I can't believe, even though I've heard it and read it, I can't believe how tiny the Earth's atmosphere is. So when we're standing down here, it looks huge. You know, we're surrounded by Earth's atmosphere. We're breathing it all the time, and it's sustaining all the life on this planet. When you get up there, you see that it's this tiny, thin little thing. And it makes you realize just how precious it is and how fragile it is and how much we need to take care of it.
And so describe it to me. I know what we saw here on the ground, and you just disappeared. So describe.
Tell them about the acceleration part.
Yeah, the acceleration, the G-forces on the way up. It was surprising to me. I mean, we had been briefed on it, but it's something else entirely to actually feel your skin get pulled back and get pushed into the chair. And so it was, you know, we had about 3 Gs on the way up. On the way down, it got up to about 5 Gs, and unfortunately, it was right in the middle of the 5 Gs when we did a status check with Comp Check. Yeah, and she, you know, I got the astronaut demo. How you doing? I was like. I'm sure I don't look too good on camera saying that, but it was.
And then the other thing that we observed, and we both observed this, and we talked about it in the car on the way back. When you get up into 0G, it feels natural, which is really weird because you've never really experienced it. But you're floating, and it's calm and serene, and it feels almost like we were evolved to be in zero G. I know that's impossible, but that's what it feels like. It feels almost like you've come home.
It almost sounds like it exceeded expectations.
Oh, and by the way, my expectations were high, and it lapped over them.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
And I know, Mark, you told me yesterday, me and my brother, we've had great adventures. How does this match up?
This one's going to be tough to beat. I look forward to trying, but this one's going to be pretty tough to beat.
That's right. We'll set it as a new bar.
We'll see. It was really special, and I'm just so honored to be a part of it. So happy to be able to represent, my mom and dad and my sister, celebrate a lifelong dream of Jeff's come true.
Yes, and it must feel good because your brother, he's worked so hard at this, and to see his lifelong dream come true and be a part of it. I mean, you already had an incredible bond. This only really makes it so much better.
That's true. And by the way, my brother has been part of the Blue Origin program from the very beginning. He's been a huge contributor. He's been a huge contributor to everything I've done in my life, and I couldn't have had a better partner for this flight. Thank you, brother.
And I have to say, there are a lot of people who look and they go, you know what, billionaire, spend a lot of money to go to space, but this is bigger than that. This is not about you just trying to go to space. This is so big in terms of education for things that are going on in this planet. Can you explain that for me?
Michael, you're absolutely right. So there are several things going on here. Every kid on this planet has potential. And for a lot of them, they never get to live up to that potential because it doesn't get unlocked. And one of the things that unlocks potential is inspiration. When I was a little kid, the Apollo astronauts inspired me. Things like this inspire kids, and that's a big deal. The other thing that's a big deal is we need to get good at going to space so that we can save the Earth. It's true that we've got tons of problems here on Earth, and we need to work on those in the here and now too. We need to do both. We need to work on the problems we have here, and we need to look to the future. That's always been the way, and that's the only good way. We need to do both, and we need to be building reusable, operable space vehicles so that we can one day, and this will be decades from now, move all heavy industry and polluting industry off into space so that we can protect this planet. We can do that. It's going to take a long time and a lot of hard work. It won't be my generation that does it. We're building the road to space so that future generations can build that vision.
Well, I'm happy for you. I'm happy for Wally. I'm happy for Oliver. We can hear you screaming and hollering in that capsule as we're sitting there. I gotta say, I'm happy for you. I'm extremely proud of you both, and I'm extremely just enamored by what you've done. I mean, I wouldn't have considered doing this until I saw you today. Most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations, man. I swear to you, I'm never speechless. Freaking speechless. Oh, man. Oh, fantastic, man.
That's good.
Thank you.
Quite a moment there with Michael Strahan and the Bezos brothers in Van Horn, Texas, right at the launch site. So let's go back to astrophysicist Hakeem Oluseyi and former NASA astronaut, Columbia University professor Mike Massimino. Mike, what do you make of their reaction there? Again, you've been there, you go to space, you come back, you land safely back on Earth, and they just look elated.
Yeah, you're happy because you got a chance to do it. Happy that you're back home safely. What I took from that brief comments that we saw there, which was great to hear, that was what Jeff Bezos said about the atmosphere and how thin it is. And you don't think of that when you're on the planet. When you see, but you know it intellectually when you see it off the planet. And you see how thin it is. It's the relationship of the top. As we think of the top thin layer of an onion versus the rest of the onion, that's the size comparison between the atmosphere and the rest of the planet. And I think it also shows, some of the benefits that can come out of this. People are saying, "Oh, they're billionaires in space, billionaire space race." Yeah, maybe so. But what we're seeing is the effect that being in space can have on people. And I think it's going to raise awareness of environmental issues and how important it is to take care of our planet, because you can see that thin atmosphere, and then you look in the other direction when you're up there and you don't see anything. We've checked out the neighborhood. There's nowhere else to go. We need to make this planet work. So I was really very grateful to hear those comments.
It's a graphic way to put it. And Hakeem, I want to pick up on that, because what we heard there from Bezos was how he then wants to tackle some of the issues back here on Earth. And one of the things he's talking about is how, in his words, he's building the road to space, but it's for future generations to piggyback on that and hopefully, in his own words, take polluting industries and maybe be able to put those out on space so we can help our own planet. How realistic do you think that is, and how hopeful do you feel when you think about the potential that this could bring?
Well, when you speak of potential, the universe is full of potential, right? We live in a universe that started off with just electrons, protons, neutrons, and light, and yet here we are. And the human potential is incredible, right? If we work together, astronaut Katie Coleman said it earlier today on the news broadcast, that when we work together, we can accomplish just about anything. I joined space research almost 30 years ago, and I quickly realized that, the things that we're asked to do are virtually impossible at the start, but yet we do them because humans are dope. We can do it, and we will do it. And so it's just a matter of will and stability for us, right? You have to have the economic stability, and you have to have the political will to make these things happen, because if nothing else, they're incredibly expensive.
And Mike, when you look at the big picture here, what do you think the broader impact is, not only of this flight, but when you look at what Richard Branson just did, launching his own mission into space, where he and a few others got to experience something very similar to what Bezos and his passengers experienced today. And you look at a company like SpaceX, which is doing all sorts of revolutionary things. What do you think it all means for the future of space travel and space exploration?
Well, Diane, I think it's going to open it up more and more. They talk about democratizing space, so you don't have to be a NASA astronaut to be able to go to space. And I think it's even more than that people are going to be able to utilize space for research, for discovery, for exploration, for promoting some of the programs they might be interested in, to raise awareness. I think there's lots of ways people can use space. And up till now, up till just the last couple of years, it's been impossible for a lot of people to get there, even to do research. For example, my students at Columbia flew an experiment on a Blue Origin rocket, one of the 15 previous flights, and they did a biomedical experiment that was open to them. We were able to afford to do that because of this opening up of possibilities in space. When you can't do it, you don't really think about it. But now that space is available to more and more people, not just individuals who want to experience it as, let's say, a tourist or an observer, but those who want to use it for research or discovery or developing something, now they can creatively think about that. And I think that's what's so exciting, is that now we have access. You have more ways to get there than we had even just a couple of years ago.
And Hakeem, you've talked about this access, because going to space used to be something reserved just for professionals. Now we're seeing, quote unquote, space tourists being able to go up. And they've gotten a lot of flack for this, because this is something right now reserved for the ultra wealthy. But you've said flying in an airplane used to be like that, and now it's accessible to, almost everybody. So how far away do you think we are of having space tourism, space exploration accessible to the wider public?
That's a good question, but it's one that I can't answer because nobody knows the answer to that question. But we can draw parallels, right? If we look at the automotive industry, there was a thing where billionaires or millionaires did a cross-country road trip in automobiles to show that they were safe and reliable. But yet, when I was growing up in the 1970s and 1980s, it wasn't a guarantee that you had a car. And if you did, it wasn't a guarantee that it had air conditioning, right? But then the 90s and the 2000s happened. And of course now, having a car is something that even kids have now, right? And they're all well equipped. So our technology does move forward. It does become cheaper in the future. And so this is still at the very earliest stages. So a lot has to be worked out and shaked out. But the good news here is that so far they've been safe and reliable. And that is really good. And they've also been bringing the price down steadily. So the trends are all in the right direction.
All right, Hakeem Aloushei, Mike Massimino, we appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And coming up, there's a new mask warning for children as the school year for many parts of the country is just weeks away. When we come back, we'll learn what the American Academy of Pediatrics is advising for all kids who are heading to school soon. Welcome back. Now to the latest on the pandemic. Hospitalizations are on the rise in 37 states as the highly contagious Delta variant surges across the country. Trevor Ault has more from Tennessee.
This morning, the American Academy of Pediatrics contradicting guidance from the CDC, saying all kids returning to the classroom need to mask up.
We learned a lot this past year, and one of the things we learned is that masking works.
The AAP's new guidance recommending children over the age of 2 wear masks regardless of vaccination status, coming as some schools are back in session. These pictures showing maskless Arizona students starting their new year after some districts there already decided to allow kids to come back without them.
We are hopeful we have a safe and effective vaccine for younger children before the year is over.
As of now, only children 12 and over can get the vaccine.
The feasibility of determining a verified level who's vaccinated and who's not among students is really going to be challenging.
But at least 9 states are attempting to block mask mandates from reaching their schools. This as the country battles a contagious Delta variant. The weekly average number of cases in the U.S. up nearly 300% in the past month. Nearly every state seeing increasing COVID cases. In Florida, one hospital system raising its COVID threat to high after seeing its hospitalizations more than double in the past 2 weeks. For top doctors, vaccinations are still the answer.
And Diane, of course, a child doesn't have to be infected with COVID-19 to be profoundly impacted by it. This morning, ABC News has obtained exclusive unpublished data from the CDC that says over the course of the pandemic, an estimated 119,000 children have lost a primary caregiver to a COVID-19 associated death. Diane.
Sad stat. Trevor Ault, thanks for that. Let's bring in epidemiologist and ABC News medical contributor Dr. Todd Eller in for more on this. Dr. Todd, thanks for being here. How do you make sense of all of this? Because this seems like conflicting guidance on masks in schools. The CDC says vaccinated students and teachers don't have to wear masks. Now the AAP says everyone in schools should wear masks. So what do you recommend?
Yeah, good morning, Diane. You know, I think this is interesting. You know, when viral dynamics are such that cases are rising and you have a substantial part of the population that's unvaccinated, still most children are, then I think it does make sense what the American Academy of Pediatrics is saying, add that level of safety and consider masking for when you're in school. At the same time, you know, the CDC guidance of saying that if you're fully vaccinated, you're really protected and therefore you don't necessarily have to mask. I mean, you know, I think that's okay as well. With that said, overall, cases are on the rise. A lot of unvaccinated children. You may not know who's vaccinated and who's not. I think it makes sense right now to consider masking indoors.
Now, what about for people who had COVID, right? They may not be vaccinated, but they say, well, I already have immunity because I already had it.
Well, so, you know, they're right. You know, they do have immunity. But the question is, would it be better if they got more immunity? And we know that the vaccine actually raises those key antibodies to a higher level than the actual virus does. So I still think it makes sense to listen to current guidance, which says still get vaccinated. It's okay to wait a while. You could wait 3 months after infection before getting vaccinated, but I would still recommend it. Those vaccines are so powerful.
And we've heard health officials call the recent surge in cases a pandemic of the unvaccinated. Now we're getting some new numbers on that. In Maryland, the governor's office says every one of the 130 people who died of COVID-19 last month, all of them unvaccinated. And Louisiana's governor says that since February, 97% of the state's cases and deaths have been among people who were not fully vaccinated. So what do those numbers tell you about where we are in the pandemic right now?
Right. The statement that we're in a pandemic of the unvaccinated, you know, it is a bit stigmatizing, which I don't love. But at the same time, there's so much truth to it. It's so disparate that there's so many more cases and hospitalizations and deaths that are occurring in the unvaccinated that I think that we just have to keep trying to, you know, get our, you know, other Americans to roll up their sleeves and take the vaccine. But we're facing a lot of mistrust, you know, in the final 30% of adults who remain unvaccinated. And, you know, I just think that, again, if you can talk to the people that you do trust, whether it's a provider, whether it's a religious figure that you are close to, or whether it's a friend, but a trusted friend, someone that you really think, is making sense. I think that's the way that we have to sort of go door to door at this point to try to get people, vaccinated. It's tricky.
It sure is. Dr. Ellerin, we appreciate your time today, as always. Thank you.
Take care, Diane.
Meanwhile, the Tokyo Olympics are facing a COVID outbreak, with at least 71 people testing positive just 3 days before the opening ceremony. 2 more U.S. athletes entered health and safety protocols overnight. Women's basketball player Katie Lou Samuelson revealed that she's tested positive, and Zach LaVine is not traveling to Tokyo with the rest of the men's basketball team out of an abundance of caution, but hopes to be able to join the team later this week. So let's talk about those positive test results just days ahead of the opening ceremony with our very own K-Mo in Tokyo. K-Mo, your graphic is frolicking around Tokyo, but I know in real life you're there in the media bubble, and some people who are staying in the Olympic Village unfortunately have now tested positive and have had to go into quarantine there. What are the plans if there's a larger outbreak?
Well, the big headline today, Diane, from Tokyo 2020 is officials say that they're not ruling out a last-minute and 11th-hour cancellation of these Olympic Games. Just think about that and what that means. The fact that we're just a couple of days away from opening ceremonies, the fact that tens of thousands of people are pouring into Japan right now, including 11,000 athletes preparing for these Olympic Games. And officials say if they see a surge in cases, if they see a major outbreak, that there is still a chance that these games could be canceled. And yes, it comes after already a 1-year delay of these Olympic Games. I was at that daily news conference today with those Tokyo 2020 officials. Another official said that if there is a major outbreak, that they will have to reassess. There could be a larger meeting with all the stakeholders of these games. But for now, they're hoping that the protocols that are in place will keep that surge from happening, keep that outbreak from happening, and keep them from having to cancel these games.
So, Kenneth, how are the U.S. teams dealing not only with this news that they just got this morning, but also with losing these players due to positive tests?
It's difficult because imagine you have these athletes, even the alternates who worked and trained very hard for these positions on these teams. And to hear this news, it's just extra added stress that they really don't need. And we also know that when it comes to these athletes, there is concern. There's concern not only for their own health, but concern for anyone they've come in contact with. And so we know that a positive case can have that ripple effect, a domino effect on these teams. And Diane, we actually found out, we did a little digging and found out what Team USA Gymnastics is doing to keep athletes safe. And they actually gave us this background, this information, saying officials say that the athletes have been separated from alternates and they're training separately. Everyone has their own room after that recent positive test that we just reported yesterday. There are designated restrooms, social distancing in private dining hall, daily COVID saliva tests, and athletes are sitting 1 per row on buses. So that shows you what Team USA Gymnastics is doing to keep their athletes from getting COVID.
No, it sounds like they're trying to be extra careful now that that alternate did test positive. But officials there are saying that the athletes in general, they're not all obeying the COVID protocol. So what are you hearing on that front?
So, Diane, can you imagine 11,000 young, confident athletes who are at the top of their game, all here in Tokyo, fully vaccinated, which brings a level of confidence as well? How do you keep those people from, obeying these COVID protocols, these mask mandate? The short answer is you don't. But Tokyo 2020 is definitely trying. We did learn from an IOC official that there have been some who've been flaunting the rules a little bit, not wearing their mask, not social distancing, not following the rules. We even learned from this IOC source that when it comes to buses, that there's been a little bit of overcrowding, but we understand that the concern over this issue caused the IOC to limit the amount of people and athletes on those buses. And we even see some of that with what Team USA Gymnastics is doing, what I just reported there. And so I asked the spokesperson for the IOC about this earlier today. And here's what she told me, Diane. She said, I want to quote her here. She said, "We have reminded and continue to remind all the National Olympic Committees of their responsibilities in following the rules of the playbooks. Rules are in place for physical distancing, including transport." So again, they're reminding athletes to follow what they call the playbook, follow the rules. This will hopefully keep you safe, hopefully keep that surge from happening here in Tokyo. What really the Japanese people are concerned about, again, that drain on the system as they see really, I think, a record number of cases that have happened several days in a row, consecutive days in a row, of more than 1,000 new daily cases of COVID-19.
All right, Kenneth Moten in Tokyo. So many fingers crossed for the athletes and for the games in general right now. We appreciate the reporting, Kenneth. Thank you.
Thanks, Diane.
And coming up, Europe is facing historic deadly flooding. Hundreds have been killed and more are still missing. When we come back, our Maggie Rulli has in-depth reporting on the destruction and the rescue efforts underway. Welcome back. We are waiting to hear from Jeff Bezos and the rest of the crew at a Blue Origin press conference in Texas after their successful mission to space. We're going to go there live as soon as they start speaking. But in the meantime, rescuers in Europe are racing to find survivors after historic deadly flooding. At least 199 people have been killed and nearly 300 are still unaccounted for as search and rescue efforts have been hampered by damage to roads. Maggie Rulli's in Germany with the latest.
In Germany, entire communities are left picking through muddy rubble after what some are calling one of the worst disasters to hit the country since World War II. The death toll soaring to around 200 in Germany and Belgium. Nearly 300 are still missing. This level of destruction is difficult for survivors to comprehend.
There's so many people dead. You don't expect people to die in a flood. In Germany, you expect it maybe in poor countries, but you don't expect it here. But it was all too fast, too quick.
These satellite images taken Sunday show the scope of devastation in Germany. Here on the ground, that devastation is felt firsthand. People desperate to salvage what's left of their homes and their businesses. This woman had a clothing business in Euskirchen. Her livelihood now gone.
How high was the water up to here? That's not here. Oh, wow.
Her neighbors are helping her save what they can. It's just them cleaning up for now. Outside help hasn't been able to reach them yet. In parts of Western Germany, the infrastructure has been completely upended.
Those floodwaters are so powerful, it just ripped through the pavement, cutting off towns. These are the kind of conditions that recovery crews are up against.
Germany, Belgium, and parts of France were battered by heavy rains late last week. But it was Germany that took the heaviest toll. The flash floods sweeping in at alarming speed. The result, the rains turning roads into debris-filled rivers, sweeping away cars, trapping people in their homes. We saw this highway turn into a riverbank. Semi-trucks and cars tossed around like toys.
You can see just how powerful these floodwaters are. The highway behind me is still completely underwater. Those floods came ripping through here. They flipped cars. They flipped these trucks into each other. Now, Army personnel and tanks are here on a search and recovery mission trying to drag these trucks out.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel paying a visit to the hard-hit city of Schuld this weekend, calling the damage shocking and surreal. And in the nearby medieval town of Achweiler, more than 110 people dying in that region alone. This man telling us how he barely escaped with his elderly mother alive. Many of the homes from the 1500s or older are now caked with thick mud, and many fear they all may have to be destroyed. As Germany remains in shock, scientists are predicting more frequent extreme events.
Our models for flooding may not be aggressive enough. They may be too conservative to really predict how fast and furious the effects of climate change are going to be felt. These very heavy rainfall events are going to become a hallmark of climate change, and they're going to become more common. as time goes by.
Climate extremes are rocking our planet, often in the most unlikely places. Siberia has one of the coldest winters outside of Antarctica, but with temperatures climbing to above 100 degrees, they're now dealing with a catastrophic fire season for the third year in a row. And the implications are dire. The fires are destroying Russia's forests, which could potentially accelerate climate change. And the heat waves from Oregon to Canada, claiming the lives of hundreds of people late last month. The fires in California now raging, prompting evacuations south of Lake Tahoe. In Germany, local meteorologists say that what they've experienced is the worst flooding in at least 500 years. Perhaps no clearer sign that no one is immune from climate change.
I'm still not able to believe this is real.
Yes, it looks like a nightmare or like in a bad movie.
Maggie Rulli in Western Germany for ABC News.
All right, Maggie, thanks. And let's bring back in our panel, astrophysicist Hakeem Aloushei and former NASA astronaut and Columbia University professor Mike Massimino, as we await that press conference with Jeff Bezos and the crew of Blue Origin's first space flight. Mike, what are you most interested in hearing about when it comes to their take about what went on inside the New Shepard while they were up there?
I'm interested in hearing about their experiences, what this was like for them, and what they take from it. Especially, I guess all of them actually, I want to hear from. But I was going to say what Jeff Bezos has to say. He mentioned the environment one. He's going to say something about that again. How cool it was for his brother to go with him. That's pretty cool. Two brothers going to space. The young person, the 18-year-old, what it felt like for him. And Wally Funk maybe more than all, because she's been involved with the space program for a long time. Very deserving person to have gone to space as an astronaut. The timing wasn't right many years ago, but the timing was right today. So I think each one of them will have an interesting story to tell.
Hakeem, how about you? What are you looking forward to hearing from them or curious about?
Yeah, well, I'm curious if anybody looked out the window and looked into space and what they saw and what they thought of it. Seeing the night sky without atmospheric interference is incredibly moving. I get to go to dark sky locations around the globe, and I tell you, the first time I saw the night sky in a place that was thousands of miles away from any city, I felt like I was seeing the sky for the very first time in my life. And I completely understood why ancient people were so enthralled with the sky. So these people that went up today, they got that same experience that ancient humans got of seeing the night sky. Did they see the Milky Way? I really want to know what they thought.
And Mike, one of the interesting parts about this takeoff also is that the rocket system is reusable. How interesting is that? How far have we come in science, and how critical is that to the future of space exploration?
The reusability is really important. We threw a lot of technology away. Jeff Bezos actually told me that it bothered him when he was a young person seeing the Apollo rockets going to the moon, and everything got thrown away except for the command module with the astronauts at the tippy top. But all those huge engines and everything that was used to get them there ended up at the bottom of the ocean. He even went with treasure hunters to return this, to get this stuff in the bottom of the ocean, the Apollo rockets, a lot of those engines, refurbished them on his own, on his own dime, and donated those to many museums. I think they're still in the process of refurbishing some of that gear. So I think it always bothered him that stuff was thrown away. You don't drive a car across the country, and if you're running out of gas, you get another car. No, you fill up and keep going. And I think that's what we have here, very simplistically, is something that is totally reusable. The space shuttle was reusable, and the solid rockets and the shuttle itself, we did throw away the external tank. But in this case, it seems to be really efficient. They learned a lot from NASA's experiences. And I think reusability is going to drive down that cost. I think that's the main advantage of it. Drive down that cost so more and more people can go.
And Hakeem, what do you think? Not only about the cost-saving factors and making things reusable, but even here on Earth with regular everyday things, we're always trying to make them more and more reusable so that we can pollute less. Now you've got these giant rockets that used to just land in the ocean and see you later. And now instead we save them, we land them in some cases, and we can use them again later.
Yeah, what's really jumped out to me today is that no one really talked that much about the landing of the rocket booster, right? That was huge news not long ago that this new capability was brought online, and now it's considered routine. And yeah, it definitely drives the price down, but also scaling will drive the price down. As more people do this and as more commercial applications for this type of technology come on board, that will also drive down the price. So everything is going systematically, step by step, where it should be.
All right, Hakeem Aloushei, Mike Massimino, great to talk to you both. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that does it for this newscast. I am Diane Macedo. Thanks for joining us. And remember, ABC News Live is here for you all day with the latest news, context, and analysis. I'll see you back here at 3 p.m. Eastern with Kira Phillips for the breakdown. Stay safe, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.